So the other day on Instagram, I put out a poll asking people what they wanted to know about me for the solo episode of the podcast. And one of the questions I got was, what camera gear do I use to shoot all my videos and take all my photos? So let's talk about it. So this is my camera bag here. I use the Think Tank Streetwalker hard drive V2. Super comfy bag, and it fits all of my camera goodies. So if we open it up, so first thing you'll notice, no camera actually inside because I'm using my camera to film the video, which is a Canon 1DX Mark II. So it's the Canon 1DX Mark II with a Rode video mic and a small HD. So the reason I like using the 1DX Mark II is it's an epic photo and video camera. The photo functions on it are incredible. It shoots like 14 or 16 frames per second photos, which is a bit overkill for me. But the video quality that you get out of it is unreal. The 1080 image is like no other 1080 image I've ever seen, and shoots incredible 100 frames per second. And also shoots 4K at 24 and 4K at 60, which you don't find in too many other cameras apart from the GH5. Oh, I forgot to mention, also on the 1DX is the Canon 24-105. I think it's the Mark II version, the second version of it, and it has IS, which is perfect for video because I mainly shoot all video stuff. So moving into the bag, what you would have seen before, this is the Sony RX100 Mark V. Probably the best point and shoot on the market apart from the RX100 Mark VI, because that thing has I think it's a 24-200mm lens, which is pretty insane for a camera this size. And I like this thing, and it takes a good image, but I think I'm going to swap it out at some stage for a second body, because if my 1DX breaks down at all, I don't have a spare body to be able to shoot anything on. So yeah, this thing's an epic little point and shoot camera. If you're just starting out or you want a good vlogging camera that can fit in your pocket, super handy, shoots 4K, and also has some high frame rate options. So moving into the lenses, the first lens I have is the Canon 85 1.4 L series lens. And what's epic about this is it has image stabilization. It's quite hard to find an 85mm that has image stabilization, and this does, which is very handy because at 85mm you really start to see a lot of shake that comes into your footage just because it's such a long focal length. So having IS in there is extremely handy because you eliminate a lot of that shake. Obviously with it being a prime lens, it's super sharp, and being able to stop down to 1.4 is really great for low light, and the bokeh you get from this is unreal. Okay, moving into the next lens, I have the Canon 16-35 f4L with image stabilization as well, which is super handy purely because it eliminates the shake that you might see when you punch into 35mm. You won't see so much shake at 16mm purely because it's so wide, but being able to have it when you punch into 35 is super handy to make sure it eliminates any shake that you may have. I looked at getting the 16-35 f2.8 Mark III, but at $3,500 New Zealand, I couldn't quite justify that. And purely because it's such a new lens, it's hard to find secondhand online. So I went with the f4 version, which is about $1,500. And yeah, great lens. Also forgot to mention that this is what I use when I do any vlogging type videos, purely because it has that 16mm focal length, which I find is the best focal length if you're doing any talking to camera vlogging style pieces, because it's so wide and you can get so much in frame. Okay, moving on to the drone. So if you saw my video, my 2018 What's My Camera Bag video, you would see that I use the DJI Mavic Pro, and I still do. This thing's been extremely useful, and I think as my first ever drone, I couldn't ask for too much more. I know that the Mavic Pro 2 is out and the Mavic Pro 2 Zoom is also out, but I can't justify buying a new drone just to upgrade the camera quality a wee bit. I know that it is quite a bit better, but I don't use the drone enough to justify spending that. If I did more aerial cinematography, definitely would, but this thing is doing just fine for the moment, so I'm gonna keep hold of it until I decide to upgrade or I crash it. Along with that, one of the accessories that I use are these Indy filters from Polar Pro. I think I have an Indy 8, 16, and 32. So they basically just cut out the amount of light that's hitting the sensor. So if you're shooting in a super bright environment, you can keep your shutter speed at 1/50 if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, which gives you that natural looking motion blur. So I'd recommend these. I'd also recommend polarizers, because they cut all the glare that you get from water, which is extremely handy if you're shooting top-down water stuff. So yeah. Okay, moving on to the more miscellaneous items of the bag. GoPro. This is a GoPro Hero 5. I've had this for almost 2 years now, and I don't use it enough to justify getting a new GoPro. I think I should utilize it more, just because you can basically put this thing anywhere and they're almost indestructible. I dropped this from, I think it was like a 3-story building when we were in Paris last year. We'd been in the hotel for literally, I want to say 2 minutes, and I'd set this thing up to do a time lapse. A big gust of wind came and it just flew off, and all that happened was I lost this front piece. But yeah, they're super versatile. I think this one shoots 4K without image stabilization, but the new GoPro Hero 7 looks unreal. But yeah, I just can't justify buying a new one because I don't use it enough. One thing I should quickly mention is the gimbal that I use, and I have it right here. And this is the DJI Ronin S, and I use this purely because it is small. It's a single-handed gimbal which you can break down to be this big. It actually fits in this bag as well, which is ideal because I didn't really want to strap it to the outside because it looks a bit rough. And I've beaten this thing to hell. It's scratched up all over the place, but it does the job extremely well. Handles the 1DX very good. I've seen videos of people putting reds on this gimbal, so I have nothing bad to say about it at all. It's a beautiful piece of kit. And if you've seen my Explore Our Land video that I released on my YouTube channel, I think it was maybe October last year, I would say 90% of it is shot on this gimbal, the 1DX, and the Canon 24-105, which is the lens filming this video. So yeah, I only shot a few shots on the 85mm, and those were the only 2 lenses I had at the time. I didn't actually have the 16-35. So it just shows that you can do quite a lot with not a lot of kit. Okay, moving on to the last few items of the camera bag. Memory cards. Super handy, always useful. As you can see, I basically have none in here because this is an SD card holder, and the 1DX doesn't take SD cards. So I actually should probably get a new one of those. But yeah, I always carry extra memory cards because you never know when you're going to run out of space or a card corrupts or something like that. Okay, so moving on to the last few pieces of the bag. This is a variable ND filter by Tiffin. It is a 77mm thread. So all of the Canon lenses that I have, all 3 of them are all 77mm in diameter on the front filter. So basically, this thing's filthy. But a variable ND filter, you can choose how much light you want to cut out. So when you're shooting video, you always want to keep your shutter speed at double what your frame rate is. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you want to have your shutter at 1/50. If you're shooting at 100 frames per second, you want to have your shutter at 1/200. So this enables you to do that. Extremely handy if you're shooting in direct sunlight and you want to shoot at a low f-stop because you'll be letting in lots of light. So if you want to shoot video, I would highly recommend getting an ND filter. Yeah, super handy piece of kit. And the last thing I have in here is this little Zeiss lens cleaning kit. So you always want to keep your your glass nice and clean. So in here we have one of these blower things to blow off dust. Can help you blow off dust from the lenses, from the mirror of your camera, and stuff like that. And then a little pen brush thing, also for lenses, just to get off any other annoying bits and pieces that you might find on there. And then also some lens solution, some spray, and a cleaning cloth. And there's also some individual little cleaning cloth packets inside this kit as well. Yeah, this is essential really, because you want to be keeping your glass as clean as possible to make sure that you have no smudges on there, or you don't have any dust on your sensor. Living with a border collie, I find hair everywhere, so I always make sure that I blow out the sensor before I start shooting anything, because I've had a couple occasions where there's been a big fat hair and it's ruined all of my shots basically. So that's what I'm carrying in my bag for 2019. I'm looking to switch out a few things, hopefully pick up a secondary body and a couple different prime lenses. But yeah, that's basically everything I used. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.